Hey guys, Loco here. For you today, I have EG's 2020 roster in the LCS. Alright, first up, let's talk about who EG or Evil Genius is as a brand. They're a really old school brand. They've been around esports forever. They competed in games such as World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Dota. Now, that's all in the past. The modern EG's image is been all about winning. So they won ESL 1 New York 2019, a CSGO tournament that was pretty big, Star Series, I-League in Season 8, and most importantly, International in 2015. That one was huge. International is basically Worlds in Dota 2, and they actually won that as a Western team. It's funnily enough, Dota, the original MOBA, the Western teams actually do quite well. And yeah, EG won the whole tournament. So that's kind of what you can expect out of them nowadays. They're going to look to make kind of the same splash in LCS. Be a big team, spend a lot of money, and win. Funnily enough though, they were in LCS long time ago with a ragtag roster like Snoopy, Crepo, Yellow Pete, almost got that one wrong. And I think Inox, he was like a North American top laner with Pobelter mid lane. So the new Evil Genius roster will be very different and they'll have a lot of success, or will they? So the roster for 2020 is Kumo from C9 Academy in the top lane, Svenskeren from C9 main team, Summer 2019 MVP, Zizuke from Vitality, Bang from 100 Thieves, also of SKT, and Zazel from C9. There's a lot of big names on this team, but I think this team has a lot of weakness that aren't very apparent. And when we break down the roster, I'll kind of run through it with you guys. So first up, we have Kumo. Kumo used to be a Riven One Trick from solo queue. And in 2017, he played as a Scouting Grounds player and he got picked up by C9. And also way far back, he used to go by Shiro. So this guy's a total weeb. He used to be Shiro, now he's Kumo. He started out mainly as a tank player and competitive despite his solo queue Riven tendency, and he had a lot of games on Poppy. He played mostly in Academy, sharing a spot with a Brazilian top laner named Jukes. So he got his break for LCS when Licorice injured his wrist, and he started to incorporate way more carries into his lineup. And he was a pretty, I don't even want to say middle of the pack, he was pretty bottom of the pack carry player. The highlight of his career is probably solo killing Impact right here.
Jumps right on double lift, AD carry next to him, so big damage into Kumo. Okay, gets in the melee range for the one, puts him back into the turret, Impact at a chase, can't find the knockup, Kumo, one more turret shot, oh, he's got the solo kill, Kumo!
I don't want to put too much blame on the guy, he doesn't have a lot of competitive experience, and also he got kind of shoved in all of a sudden when Licorice got his injury, but even with jungle attention, he would often be down in CS and he just really didn't know his role on the map. Also, top lane is a very experience heavy role and one of the most import heavy in LCS along with mid lane, so Kumo is going to have a huge mountain to climb in 2020. Now, moving on to jungle, the sole bright spot for EG and the one spot where they knocked it out of the park, Svenskeren. He's the Summer Split MVP in 2019. He was so incredibly good. He's an extremely smart jungler that knows where to be, but he still has really strong mechanics. He doesn't just rely on his knowledge. He's someone, when you put him in a skirmish situation, will come out ahead. He propped up both his solo lanes, Licorice, a struggling Kumo, and Niski to a level they probably couldn't achieve by themselves in 2019, and he's someone that constantly built his own lead, got his laners ahead, and played primary engager and shot caller for C9. He was such a big reason why C9 was good in 2019. And if you go back and think of C9 in that year, I mean, they took Liquid to Game 5 in summer. Like, this team was incredibly solid, and a lot of that was Svenskeren. Like, just look at that roster. Like, Licorice with his wrist injury, Sneaky and Zazel struggling. Niski wasn't the greatest at the start and developed good synergy with Svenskeren and ended up being better later on. Like, he was so core to their success. If EG in 2020 is good, it'll be because of Svenskeren. Now, moving on to mid lane, we have Zizuke. Zizuke is a mechanically skilled solo laner that matched up with pretty much the best of EU. He had a tendency to carry or into away games. He was basically a feast or famine player, but still, in 2018, he was so good. He would be very split push focused, would often be the catalyst of his team opening up the game and really pushing their lead. Here's a clip from their performance in 2018. This is them versus the former world champion, Crown.
From the draft onwards, Syndra wants to take blue buff and clear with her friends. She does nothing in the 1v1 here, as you'll see.
Jizuke doing a masterful job predicting what Crown was up to and taking him down. Getting back out of the way of the arrow as well.
Now, in 2019, he wasn't able to put up the same kind of performance, especially after taking a short break in summer due to medical issues. So the kind of form he'll be entering into LCS with is a big question mark. Now, for AD carry, we have Bang, probably the biggest name on this team. He made his name as a dominant team fighter for SKT, and he was a core part of why SKT was able to win games once it got to the mid and late game phase. I mean, yes, their macro was good, but their team fighting was really the crown jewel of SKT plus Bang plus Faker roster, and he was an amazing team fighter. Do you guys remember the Lulu Lucian games that he had? He's not the most dominant laner. He actually struggled a lot in North America in 100 Ds, but he eventually found footing later on and was much better in summer. There's a lot of question regarding Bang's skill level, and the two common angles that people like to attack him as is he either got carried by Faker or they want to say he got held back by Afro. Now, I don't think it's fair to say either way. There's definitely parts where Bang carried Faker, especially in some of the team fighting excellence that Bang was able to bring to that SKT roster. And I also don't think it's true that he got held back by Afro. There were moments where Bang was very passive in lane and Afro didn't have a lot to work with. So it's a very big enigma, like how good this player actually is. So we'll have to look to the future of EG's 2020 and really take a look at his play individually to judge him. One thing for certain though is he is much better out of lane than he is in lane. Now let's move on to the support, Zeyzal. He's pretty much been a shot caller for every single team he has played on. He's a smart player that understands the role his champion plays in the game. You can give him an engaged champion, you can give him a disengaged champion, you can give him a pick champion, and he will do his job really well. He's not someone that's very mechanically skilled, like he's not someone that's constantly outplaying people, but with his brains, he'll know where to be on the map and do his job. He's just a reliable player when given a role. Now, there's been a lot of criticism about his laning and ability to carry when given resource to bot side, but it's hard to judge him purely based on that because for majority of his career on LCS, he was tied to Sneaky. And we know Sneaky's performance has been middling at best. Now, there were games in LCS, especially on range supports like Lux, where if you watch his pro view, he was god-awful. Like, this guy does not have the best laning. That is a fact. So, yeah, a worrying trend for EG. So what are my overall thoughts about this EG roster and their level of performance in 2020? I think it'll be pretty underwhelming. And you also have to kind of look at the background of how everything came to be. The initial entrance of EG to LCS was very exciting. We knew they'd want to be a contender from the get-go. And then they bought out that big C9 package and Svenskeren, Zeyzal, Deathly, and Kumo, and it seemed so promising. And the expected roster was they would go double import solo lanes with Deathly, Zeyzal, and bot lane with Svenskeren jungle. But somehow we ended up with this, Jizuke and Kumo and Bang. I think that's where a lot of the disappointment came for EG. So one thing that is really, really crucial is they have weak side lanes. Kumo, as we talked about before, is very new. A lot of imports in the top lane. Like, top lane is a lane about wave control. It's an isolated lane. You have to be very good individually to succeed in top lane. And he didn't do very well on C9 this year. And this roster overall is worse than 2019 C9. So going into 2020, I think Kumo will struggle a lot, unless he makes massive improvements, which I don't think will be likely. Now for Bang and Zeyzal, both have made their names as players outside of laning. The duo of them together will highlight their weakness even further, the fact that they just aren't good laners. So this is a bot lane I'm actually really worried about. Now, the other big problem is the inconsistency of Jizuke. It's really hard to know what kind of player he'll be coming into LCS, like how devoted he'll be, like how much work he's going to put in, what he thinks of North America. I'm sure in interviews he's going to say he's going to try hard, he didn't come here to earn money, but no one really says that in an interview, right? So it's really hard to tell until we actually see him play. And it's unreliable to play around a player that won't bring consistent performances. If he can be consistent, then him plus Svenskeren will be the saving grace of this team. But in the chance he isn't, I feel like we're going to have another Febevin situation. And we don't need another Febevin situation in North America, especially for a brand like EG. Overall, it's hard to see this EG team do well in 2020. Svenskeren is going to have another year of back-breaking load up front of him. But one thing I do trust is how much EG wants to win, and hashtag LiveEble in the LCS, so I expect changes for them until they can get the kind of results they want. So not too excited for their initial 2020, but EG in the future, I really trust the org, and I do think they'll do well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And remember, I'm not crazy, I'm just Loco. Bye!